So the question is, do you need a Leica camera to take nice photos? The answer is no. In this video I'm going to cover the Lumix S5 compared to the Leica SL, and I'll demonstrate to you how I'm using the Lumix camera and getting Leica look photos which you may recognise from some of my other videos, assuming that they were shot with a Leica camera. Stay with me until the end and I'll give you a few solutions on how you can maybe get your photos to look closer than the photos I'm showing in this video. Hello, welcome, Matt here from MrLeica.com. So yes, today we're going to compare the Leica SL to the Lumix S5, and then I'll show you that if you're only interested in the final image, you'll probably be very happy with the images from the Lumix, even if you want a Leica look to your images. If you are more about enjoying the user experience of taking the pictures, there's a strong argument that you might still want to buy a Leica camera. So before I show you how I use my Lumix camera to take nice photos, let's first cover the pros and cons for both cameras. Both cameras share quite a few similarities. They are both 24 megapixel full frame mirrorless cameras. Both cameras are L mount. Both cameras have dual SD card slots. Both cameras have 1/250th of a second maximum flash sync speed. And finally, both cameras give you a 3-inch LCD. So first, if I cover the pros of the Leica SL and why I use the Leica SL for 95% of my photos. To give you some context, I've owned both cameras for around 10 months. I had the Lumix first and then I bought the Leica after. I've shot around 13,000 plus photos on the Lumix, mostly before I got the Leica, and then I've shot 25,000-ish photos on the Leica in that period. The main reason I normally pick up the Leica over the Lumix for photos is the amazing EVF. This is probably the main reason you may want to buy the Leica SL compared to any other camera. I even compared the Leica SL to the Leica M11 with the new EVF, like the rectangular EVF. For any Leica geeks, and the older SL EVF is still better than the very latest hot shoe EVF for the M11. The reason it is so good is because it's a 0.8 magnification and 4.4 million megapixels compared to only 0.74 magnification and 2.36 million megapixels. So it's like 2 times the resolution, and you really do notice. It's like looking real time at your thing you're looking at rather than looking at like a little flickery TV screen. The second reason I love using the Leica SL is it's just really nicely built and it's really simple. It's quite a minimal layout of buttons and the menu is really simple and it's just very, very easy and instinctive to use. Number 3, the Leica SL just feels really kind of luxury and metal and everything just feels very well made, whereas the Lumix feels a bit more plastic. I'm not saying it is, and the menus are a bit more complicated. They're definitely not the worst menus, but they're not as good as Leica menus. Number 3, if you enjoy shooting in bright conditions, the Leica SL offers you a base ISO of ISO 50 and a maximum shutter speed of 16 thousandths of a second. If you compare that to the Lumix, that only has a base ISO of 100 and a maximum shutter speed of 8 thousandths of a second. In reality, when do you ever need that? It's quite useful if you're shooting with the fast lenses such as the TT-Artisan 50 0.95, the Leica Noctilux 50 f1 and the new Voigtlander Nocturne 50 f1. I did actually find this quite useful. Benefit number 4, I really like the small LCD on the top of the Leica SL camera to just chimp my settings. It just gives me peace of mind. The Lumix doesn't have a top LCD, so then I have to chimp on the menu on the back. Number 5, this sounds very shallow, but I enjoy the Leica brand. I feel much more proud holding a Leica camera with a Leica branded camera than using a Lumix. I don't spend money on clothes or anything else expensive, so that's my little bit of luxury, having a Leica around my neck. And number 6, this doesn't really relate to me because I shoot RAW, but if you shoot JPEGs, the colours are arguably much better out of camera from Leica cameras compared to Lumix cameras. Here, both cameras were set to auto with the same settings, and for my taste, I much prefer the colour palette of the Leica camera compared to the Lumix camera. And benefit number 7 for the Leica, the way I shoot is I shoot single spot manual focus lenses. Look through the viewfinder, there's a single point cross in the center. I'll move my composition to put the cross over the nearest eye of the model. I'll focus, recompose, take my shot. That's not as easy if you try and shoot the Lumix, because on the Lumix, the center point cross doesn't stay in the center, even with manual focus lenses. So you go to zoom in the center to where you'd expect the cross to be to focus on your nearest eye. If you're shooting a portrait, the cross isn't there, and so then you're looking around the viewfinder zoomed in and then you've lost the model's face in the composition, and it just wastes a lot of time, and it's like a little bit of a frustrating, to the main point that I now use the Leica, not the Lumix. A lot to do with that and the viewfinder. If you know how to fix that, let me know in the comments. Maybe I'm just being dumb. But it's not all one-sided. What are the benefits of buying the Lumix S5 over the Leica? Number 1, it's quite a big one. The Lumix S5 has built-in image stabilization. 6 stop, which is similar to the Leica SL2S. If you do want to come with IBIS but you prefer the Leica brand, check out the Leica SL2S video and that will give you like for like. In practice, when is IBIS actually useful? Because I've never really used it on any of my cameras and I've never really noticed not having it. It is actually useful if you shoot, in particular, long lenses. See my last video on long lenses. Number 2, if you shoot in low light with static subjects, but it's not useful for portraits because if the model's breathing or moving slightly, you're still going to get a blurry image. And then if you shoot video handheld, having some image stabilization is useful. Number 2, another biggie, having a flip out LCD screen on the Lumix is really, really useful for shooting video and for tripod work. I really enjoy the Lumix S5 for product photography. Maybe I'm just getting old and I don't want to crank my neck over to look through the viewfinder. But having the LCD, I can just flip it so it's looking vertical. Obviously, it's also useful for high up shots and very low down shots if you're taking those types of photos. Number 3, if you enjoy lighter cameras, the Lumix S5 is slightly lighter than the Leica, 714 grams versus 847, and it is noticeable. You can tell the difference. Benefit to number 5, if you'd asked me, I've never really noticed this, but on paper, this is what the stats say. The resolution of the Lumix 3-inch LCD is almost 2 times higher resolution than the Leica one. And finally, number 6, a big one, price. June 2022, for £1,500, you can get body only a brand new Lumix S5 or a used Leica SL camera. Both the same price. What would I buy? If you're going to shoot video, definitely get the Lumix. This is my video camera. If you want to shoot photos, get the Leica. And that's what I do, having both cameras. If you're on a tight budget, you can get a used Lumix S5 for around £1,200. So that is your cheapest option, but this is bodies only. So those are the reasons why I use both cameras. How am I taking Leica looking photos with my Lumix camera? What is my process and how can you do the same to take similar looking photos with your camera? Number 1, if you're shooting JPEG, you are going to struggle to get images as nice from your Lumix as you are from your Leica. Obviously, it's very much a personal choice, but anybody that I've spoke to on all my Zoom calls and things that I do that have switched to Leica, they're like, oh, the colours are amazing straight out of camera. I don't need to do any processing. So it's not me saying that. It seems to be a common comment from many people that are switching to Leica. That's the first thing they seem to notice. The good news is it's only a problem if you shoot JPEG. If you shoot RAW, you can then apply a preset and convert maybe a more standard looking colour file to perhaps something a bit more interesting. So if you like the look of the photos I'm showing at the moment, all of these photos are shot on the Lumix S5 and not a Leica camera. And if you want to do the same, all you need to do, shoot your photos in RAW and then apply the MrLeica Lumix S preset pack and you'll get the same photo. But then if you say to me, but Matt, I can't like my models like you do, or my posing for my models isn't the same as how you're posing your models. If you've ever seen one of my videos and watched it right to the end, at the very, very end of every video, I say, thanks patrons, you've been amazing, or something like that. I use a separate platform called Patreon to teach people various aspects of photography, but in particular model photography, lighting, posing, pretty much everything to do with how I'm creating the pictures that you're seeing in these videos. So if you've already got a nice camera, you just can't get the model bit right. If you are into portraits, feel free to check out Patreon, and there's 65 plus videos just on behind the scenes with models. There's probably 10 videos just on lighting, and then there's all the other 100 plus posts on various other things. So you might find that useful. If you're more of a black and white shooter, again, it's really easy. You can shoot RAW on either the Leica SL or the Lumix S5, apply a quick black and white preset and job done. All my photos for every model, I shoot all photos in RAW. I'll bring all photos into Lightroom. I'll add my MrLeica black and white preset. I'll export all photos. I'll send all photos to the model, and that's for every model. So it probably takes me 1 hour, excluding export time, to process 300 images from a typical model shoot. If you're spending half an hour to 1 hour in Photoshop trying to adjust your sliders to make your black and whites look like black and whites that you like, you might find it easier to just apply presets in Lightroom. That's what I do, and if you never have enough time in a day, which I think everyone can probably agree on, that's a really easy way to do it. All of these photos are shot with a Lumix S5 camera, even though some of them you may have expected them to be shot with a Leica. And then I'm using a combination of Leica screw mount lenses, Leica M mount lenses, Leica R lenses, and even Nikon F mount lenses via various adapters to get these particular pictures. I say my personal favourite is probably the Leica R lenses on both the Leica SL and the Lumix S5. You can focus a little bit closer, and it gives you that little bit of Leica R lens magic, which you might not get from your standard Lumix kit lens. That being said, you don't need to use vintage lenses to take nice pictures. These photos are shot with the latest Leica SL lenses, and these photos are even shot with the 20 to 60 Lumix kit lens, and to my eyes they still look nice. So in summary, should you buy the Lumix S5 or the Leica SL? If you're only interested in the final image, you'd be happy with the Lumix. However, if you're interested in enjoying using the camera and the feel of the camera, it's kind of cheesy as it sounds, you'll probably prefer the Leica if you're going to spend the same money on either camera. And if you're using your own cameras and you're just trying to get nicer images from your own camera, I'd try shooting in RAW, try adding a black and white preset, try using vintage lenses, and if you shoot portraits, feel free to check out my Patreon if you're struggling with any aspect of portraiture. And with that, if you found this video useful, please smash the like button. It helps the YouTube algorithm spread the video to more people that might be interested in this topic. And as always, a massive thanks to my amazing patrons.